Okay, this is a reaction video. This is another one from Passport 2. Please click like, share, and subscribe for them. And please click like, share, and subscribe for me. This is how the internet in Germany is different than in America. Well, I would have thought it would be the same everywhere, but apparently I'm wrong. How the internet in Germany is different than in America. Let's see.
It is known as the World Wide Web, but does that necessarily mean internet surfers in Germany and the US will have the same experience using it?
Apparently not.
Hey guys, and welcome back to our channel. I am Donnie.
And I'm Aubrey.
And we are two Americans currently... Shoot, hold on. Sorry, today I was trying to have the hologram live stream, but clearly the Wi-Fi here is way too slow. Anyways, we are currently living in Germany and sharing all of our experiences living and traveling throughout Europe.
How impressive you can do that on, make it an old 1960s style Star Trek, make her disappear like that. Fantastic.
With different laws and regulations, websites geo-blocking access to people in other countries, or even just differences in acceptance of digital.
Now I knew that they do that in China. I mean, I know that just if you go on the web in China, they're going to restrict you on what you can look at, what you can't look at.
Digitalization amongst nations, we have found that the experience using the internet can be very different depending on what country you're accessing it from. In fact, one of the biggest culture shocks for us moving to Germany was firsthand experiencing the lack of digitalization in much of German society and bureaucracy. DW News described the state of digitalization in Germany like this: schools with outdated computers, health authorities rely on fax machines, town offices that offer few or none of their services online. That's the reality in Germany in 2021. So what has our personal experiences been with the internet in Germany versus the USA? Well, that is exactly what we are going to talk about today in our video. Technological Unterschied, website speeds and TLDs.
Now, when we were in Germany in 2006, my brother had his computer, and we only used it very, very briefly in the hotel. They charged for us using their internet, and it was, I believe, I think it was by minute or something. I forget how exactly it was, because I think at the end we ended up having to pay like 50 or 60 more euros, and he didn't use it that much for us to get information. I don't know if it's changed, but that I seem to recall that.
In the same DW article that I mentioned before, they expanded on the internet and tech situation in Germany by saying, in a recent EU report, Germany was ranked 21st out of the bloc's 27 member countries, plus the UK, when it comes to offering online services to its citizens. Several months into the pandemic, health authorities were still reporting case numbers using fax machines. People had problems working from home due to patchy internet connections, and across the country, schools lacked basic technology for...
And let me just give you a quick overview. In the United States, where I'm at, okay, I work at home twice a week, okay, and I have my own internet connection set up. I have my own Wi-Fi. I can just hook on to the computer like I am right now. In fact, I'm doing this right now with my Wi-Fi, and everything is coming up roses. Now, if I travel, say, a city like Washington, D.C., for example, and I go to a hotel there, they tend to want to charge you, but most hotels around the United States don't. It's free Wi-Fi. That's a big thing nowadays. But when I was in Washington, D.C., they wanted to charge me.
Remote learning. Now, statements like these offer a pretty bleak view of the internet in Germany, and is probably a pretty broad overgeneralization. So I want to share with you what our personal experience has been, and I want to start by focusing on one thing mentioned in that article, and one thing Germany has become somewhat infamous for: patchy and slow internet connections. To benchmark, according to speedtest.net, The US ranks number 13 in the world for average fixed broadband speed with an average download speed of 203.81 megabits per second. Rather than try and talk about the entire US, I'll focus on where we are from, Oklahoma. Oklahoma is the opposite of densely populated and for the most part fairly rural. It ranks nearly dead center in 26th in broadband access amongst US states. Only 25.9% of Oklahomans have access to fiber optic service, but 78.1% at least have access to broadband 100 megabits per second or faster. Note, that is data for having access, not necessarily actually paying for having speeds that fast. Germany, on the other hand, ranks all the way down at 35th in the world with an average download speed of 136.66
I actually would have thought Germany would be higher than that. I really would have.
Megabits per second, which honestly did surprise me that the average speed in Germany was that high. There are other factors that can hinder speeds to consider as well. For example, German homes tend to be built with much thicker and denser walls than American homes, which can hinder Wi-Fi connections. With all the horror stories that we heard about internet speeds in Germany and based on their global rank with internet, we expected when we got here to struggle with very slow internet connection, and in particular since we make YouTube videos, we thought for sure it would make uploading them more difficult. But for our needs, and honestly based on what we have experienced in other parts of the globe, we certainly haven't had a complaint about our internet most of the time, and it has been fine for our particular needs. And
that's good to know. But and look, when we didn't have any slow internet speeds when we used it in Germany, we just had to pay for it, and that was kind of strange. Because, like I said, the only time I really experienced paying for it, and keep in mind when I went to Washington D.C., that was about 10 years ago. Germany was about 15 years ago, but it was a pretty big price to pay just for a couple of days, doing a couple of things on the internet, just to getting information. But it was what it was.
Our internet is by no means blazing fast, and for the internet package that we have, we get only about 40 to 43 megabits per second download and around 4 megabits per second upload. But that is also when only one person is using it and with one wall between me and the router. It is not uncommon for our internet to slow down to the 20 megabits per second range. In Germany, fiber optic cables have been invested in only a few specific places to deliver the best internet speeds. As of June of 2020, Cologne had the best coverage of fiber optic cables at about 80%, Munich at 75%, Hamburg at 72%, and then that is when it all...
Now, I've been to Cologne before, and Cologne is a great town. I'm looking at these, Berlin at 5%. That's which is surprising. I would thought Berlin would be higher. Dortmund at 5%. Dusseldorf 3%. Looking at Bonn. I believe Bonn was, correct me if I'm wrong, Bonn was the capital of West Germany, wasn't it? Wow. Dresden, Hanover.
All drops off, and in particular, rural parts of the country. In Germany, most internet is delivered by old copper wires where fiber optic cables haven't been put in. We are actually about to move homes within the same town here in Germany, and when we looked at the connections available to the new home from the different major providers, we were looking at only having up to 16 megabits per second download speed available to us unless we got a special LTE plan from Telecom. However, that was until our future landlord informed us that they actually just put in fiber optic cables to the house, and we could get much faster internet, and probably the fastest internet we have ever personally had. But I do want to know from you, what are your internet speeds generally, and what have you experienced in terms of internet connections in Germany or other parts of the world? Real quick, I do want to run a little test. Let's see how long your internet and mine takes to send me a notification that you have liked and subscribed to this channel. So go ahead and hit those buttons and run this little test with me. I am absolutely
Do the same for me while you're doing it for him, please.
Absolutely not an expert in European or American data laws, but one thing we did not expect as we have lived in Germany and wanted to keep in touch with the local news back home is that many, if not most, American local news websites geo-block European visitors from their sites.
Now, there's VPNs where you can go around. I believe you can go around these with VPNs, but Yeah, that's actually surprising. I don't know why they would do that.
Geo-blocking simply means that a site blocks users from accessing it purely based on the geography that they are accessing it from. For example, if we want to access our home city's local news, KFOR, if we go to their website, we get this message. But it isn't just our small capital city's news. It is also higher profile sites like the New York Daily News or Orlando Sentinel. A 2018 article by the BBC
Now I can get the Daily Mail from England on here, but I've never tried to get the Germans because I can't read German. But but some of those sites actually translate to English.
explains this by saying, the websites went dark in Europe after the General Data Protection Regulation (GDPR) law came into force on the 25th of May. GDPR gives EU citizens more rights over how their information is used. Under GDPR, companies working in the EU or providing a service to people within the EU must show that they have a lawful basis for processing personal data or face hefty fines. Some news agencies and other websites in the US have come up with ways to be able to comply with the EU regulations so that us over here are able to access their websites. But even 3 years on, there are still a lot of websites that have clearly determined there aren't enough Europeans interested in small local American news sites to change in order to accommodate those visitors. And
I can't think for the life of me why a German in Berlin would have no interest whatsoever in what's going on in Oklahoma. I would think that would be priority for them. Come on, what's wrong with you people?
EU regulations. Until this happens though, there are always VPNs, which by the way, this is not sponsored, but if you are interested in a VPN, we do have a link to the VPN that we use, ExpressVPN, in the description of the video where you can get some sweet deals if you sign up with them using our link. Sites back home geo-blocking us from accessing them is not the only thing that the GDPR also changed in how we experience the internet over here. One thing we also notice every single time we want to access a website once we moved over here is that any and nearly all websites we get on, we never get to just simply surf that site from the moment that we click on their link. Instead, we always have an annoying pop-up asking us to give consent for cookies.
Now we get that too sometimes. It's like you go to a site, this site uses cookies, and do we have your? That doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen sometimes.
Now, I say it is super annoying, and I find that it is in a minor way, but termspeed.com writes, on the face of it, cookie banners may seem like an unnecessary annoyance, but there is a reason that governments are becoming more concerned about regulating online business activity. Along with the GDPR, the e-privacy directive was passed, and websites needing to comply with these new EU regulations have had to add a pop-up that looks something like a variation of this, and you have to either give or deny consent to their cookies. In the US, however, asking for consent to cookies is not required and therefore isn't always requested.
Yeah, you get it every now and then. I get it on some pages, but not a lot. It's it's just something that they sometimes ask to let you know what's going on. It's not that much of an annoyance. He's called it a minor annoyance, but on every single site you have to go to, you have to click that.
To confirm this, I did some very important journalistic and scientific research by texting my brother in the US, asking if he has to answer any annoying pop-ups every time he gets on a website in the US, and his reply was, I think that may just be a Europe thing. I feel like I get that pop-up very rarely. It happens sometimes, but definitely not all the time. Therefore, in the US, he is still surfing an internet bliss as he simply clicks on a website and just immediately starts scrolling for his entertainment and completely avoids this 2-second hindrance and annoyance. All while getting his information stolen, I guess.
Not necessarily.
When we look at a list of the top websites according to SimilarWeb.com for the US and for Germany, we see a perfect example of the next difference we did not anticipate before moving here when it comes to internet use between Germany and the US. Somewhat not surprising, the top 3 websites visited in both Germany and the US are the same massive global brands, but number 4 and number 5 in Germany was the surprise for us. Specifically, these parts. If you don't know the term top level domain, or TLD for short, this is what the last few letters of a website is called. By far the most popular TLD is of course .com. However, there are more specific and special TLDs known as country code.
Yeah, .net, .de, country code DE, I think is for Deutschland.
Top level domains, or
That's a guess. I could be wrong. I don't know.
CCTLDs for short. These are special domain names that are country or region specific and designate which country that particular website is trying to service. For example, .uk for the United Kingdom, or .cn for China, or .de for Deutschland. And Germans,
and I was right,
and probably the rest of the world are much more aware of CCTLDs than Americans are. In April 2021, Statista released data showing the most used CCTLDs in the world.
China, Turkey, I'm guessing that's Germany's 3, UK is 4, Russia's 5. Okay, and I don't even see the United States on there at all.
And we can see that Germany's .de is the third most used because so many websites in Germany uses this rather than .com. This is one thing we have now had to get used to using, because one thing that you will notice missing from this list of top 10, which might seem a little bit strange, is that the US is not listed in the list of top CCTLDs. One, you might be thinking, well, that's because the US doesn't have a CCTLD, or two, that's because the US CCTLD is .com. Well, unfortunately, both of those thoughts are actually wrong. First, .com is not the US's specific website designation, and US does have a CCTLD, and in fact, it was the first invented CCTLD, .us. However, it is extremely rare for Americans to use a website specific to the US that uses a .us address, and I would venture to say that
sometimes it's .net, sometimes it's .gov. I mean, even the United States government doesn't use .us, they use .gov.
most Americans may not even know it exists. The only website in the US's top 50 most visited websites that even uses .us is Zoom.us. The very quick and the most popular explanation that I have found online from a couple of different forums talking about why the US doesn't use its own CCTLD is because the US invented the TLD system before CCTLDs came along, and therefore we just stuck with what we were already using, .com rather than .us. Of course, this is an oversimplification, and not every US site is .com.
You can't know what everybody's thinking at the same time, but yeah, you get used to something. And look, if I say go to the website, my website's my name, you're going to assume it's going to be scott.com, okay, in the United States. That's just how you wouldn't go, oh, it's .net, or you would automatically go to scott.com, assuming that I had one, but I don't.
So then maybe the question becomes, why do other countries use a country-specific TLD rather than just using .com like in the US? And for example, why do we need to use Amazon.de in Germany rather than...
Because they sell different things in Germany and they do in the United States. Plus, it's also in German. If you go to Amazon.com, it's going to be all in English. And I don't know if there's a choice. I can see up in the upper right-hand corner there that there's a choice you can have it. Maybe there is in the United States. I haven't checked Amazon.com. Maybe I will.
Than using Amazon.com? Well,
I guess there is. I just showed it.
The answer can be quite simple. It was very frustrating when we first tried to use Amazon.com over here, and most products we wanted to buy, the seller wouldn't ship to Germany. But luckily, Amazon recognized that we were in Germany, suggested that we use Amazon.de, and that's when we learned this site is specifically targeting a German demographic, and therefore what we find will be able to ship to us over here. There are other pros, like the prices default to euros, and for Germans, it actually is in German for them, although we use a special version called Amazon.de in English.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I said in the upper corner, you see a flag there. When he brought up the Amazon.de, there was a German flag, but you can click that flag. And a lot of the European sites I see have that, especially the football sites that I go to, not necessarily Arsenal, but I've gone to some of the German, like Bayern Munich site, Borussia Dortmund site. You click on that flag and you could bring it down. It'll bring out to a British flag. It doesn't bring an American flag, but it brings a British flag. It means you can read what's going on in English
Most of the time. But so therein lies the answer for why countries use their CCTLDs. Users in a specific country are able to determine that a website that ends in their country's CCTLD is going to give them the most pertinent and specific information to them, rather than a frustrating site that the information is more internationally generic, or for example, may not actually even ship products that they sell to their country. Now, as a quick side note, just looking at these lists, you can see that there is not always a .de version of popular websites, and in many cases, if you type in a popular website followed by .de, it will just redirect you to the .com version of the website. For example, type in youtube.de and you will immediately just be redirected to youtube.com, although this is not a hard and fast rule for websites. Based on the last difference, This next difference is more obvious to me now, but at first, after moving here, was a very big frustration for me. I went all out in my attempt to integrate into my German life, and also I wanted to give myself a challenge in learning the language, so I switched my phone completely over to being in German and setting my country profile of my phone to Germany.
Which isn't necessarily a bad idea if you want to learn the language, I think. I mean, maybe I never had to do that. I've never done that, but
This inevitably changed the way that my phone searches the internet compared to, say, Aubrey's phone, which is still set up with the country profile of the US. The biggest, most annoying difference between searching the internet between my German settings and my old American settings are when I am Googling for football scores.
Right, because if you're looking for football scores and you're from Oklahoma, you are not looking for what was the score between Borussia Dortmund and Union Berlin, or Bayern Munich and Kaiserslautern. You're looking for your beloved. I assume you went to Oklahoma, maybe didn't. Maybe you went to Texas. I don't know where you went to school. You're looking for the American, the throw ball scores, but you're getting the soccer scores.
American football. If I want to know what the score to my alma mater's football game over the
Texas A&M.
weekend was, I simply Googled Texas A&M football, and on my American device, I didn't even have to click on a website to find the results because Google just told me the score to the last game at the top of their page. However, now that I am searching for scores on a German device, Google works a little bit differently, and I guess assumes that a German wouldn't really be interested in that information, so
I would be curious to see how many German people really give a rat's rear end how Texas A&M did in the college football game. I'm guessing not too many people are too interested or care much about that.
don't get the simplified, straightforward answer at the top of the page. Rather, I have to scroll through websites to try and find one that has the updated scores on it. Now, based on the last difference with CCTLDs, of course this makes sense because my phone is set up as a German device. If Aubrey and I Google the same thing, we will definitely get different web results, no matter the subject. My phone will often give preferences to .de sites on that topic because the information is geared specifically for a German audience, whereas Aubrey's phone, set up as an American device, will pull up mainly .com sites or sites in English geared towards her demographic. And finally, of the websites most visited in each country, an interesting thing I noticed is about the American-developed and owned app, WhatsApp. The first time that we talked about WhatsApp in a video, our German viewers didn't believe us that Americans don't use or don't even know about WhatsApp in
I have WhatsApp, but I don't use it very often.
many cases, while the rest of the world depends on it. To further prove this point, WhatsApp ranks as the number 26 most visited site in Germany, yet isn't even in the top 50 in the US, and honestly, it may even be much lower on the list, but I would have had to create an account and possibly pay to access the information, so forgive me, but just trust me, Americans don't even know what WhatsApp is for the most part. Something that you can tell from this recent tweet from Casey Neistat as well. I hope that you enjoyed seeing those few ways that surfing the internet has been different in our experience in Germany from the US, but let me know what other differences you may know of in the comments below. To see who made it this far in the video, the random question of the week is, well, let's actually get a little bit political. Should the internet be viewed as a utility like water or electricity now, or not? Be sure to hit that like and subscribe buttons, and we will see you in our next.
Okay, this is how the internet in Germany is different than in America. Interesting to and not what I expected, but still interesting. Please click like, share, and subscribe for Passport 2, and please click like, share, and subscribe for me. And have a good rest of your day. Thanks for watching.